What's up, IDP Army? It's your man Jordan Rains, and we are back again with another episode of the Ultimate ID. Man, you know what? I do this every time. I don't know why I do that every time, but I do. We're back with another episode of the IDP Army podcast. I don't know why I'm always talking about the Ultimate IDP Index. Maybe it's because it's just that good. Anyway, check out the ultimateidpindex.com. You'll know what I'm talking about. Anyway, let's do this.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
What's up? All right, you know, I think it is right here in, if you're on the YouTube, the Ultimate IDP Index is written up there. So it's probably subconscious, but this is the IDP Army podcast. You already know that. Hopefully, if it's your first time joining us, thank you. We talk mostly IDP, all things fantasy football. Check out the Offensive Points podcast. That's also on this YouTube or the stream on the podcast world, wherever you get it, iTunes, Google, Stitcher, Spotify, whatever. Shout out to those guys. They're doing an awesome job. We're going to continue with our 32 team series. We're talking about kind of a stinky team today, the Detroit Lions. It's not going to be a super exciting show, but I'm going to try to do my best to spice it up for you guys. Before we get to that, check out the site, idparmy.com. Got the rankings up. All my offensive and IDP redraft rankings are up there. So go check those out. Melvin Ingram. This is a piece of news I wanted to cover quickly. Just signed with my Steelers. So, let's talk about quickly the fantasy repercussions here. Melvin Ingram, 32 years old. So he's probably just going to be a one-year thing in fantasy for us. But last year he played 7 games, didn't record any sacks, but he still came through with quite a few pressures last year, 28. Came out graded really well, if you're a PFF person. So he still has, we've known that Melvin Ingram's been a great pass rusher. He gets to go play with the Steelers on probably the best defensive line in football. So I expect him to have a good season. This does put a little bit of a damper on Alex Highsmith's breakout, I think. But the Steelers have been such a productive defensive line. I don't think that it's necessarily going to be something where they're not still all going to be able to be fantasy relevant. Highsmith, after all, was fantasy relevant last year. Dupree was fantasy relevant. Tuitt, Hayward, Watt. A couple of those guys are gone now, but Dupree primarily. Vince Williams also retired. So I think there's going to be snaps to go around. I was, doing some Twitter checking out today. Tommy Jaggy, a really good guy to follow if you guys are looking for someone to follow on the Steelers. He tweeted out today, Melvin Ingram lined up as both outside and inside as an edge. Very interesting. He said, looks like we could expect him to maybe fill in a little bit for the loss of Williams as a pass rusher from the middle. So he's going to get used, and he's a veteran. He knows what to do on the football field. Interesting little stat nugget. Over the last 3 years, he has 3 interceptions. And over the last 3 seasons, TJ Watt has 3 interceptions. So between the two of them, the Pittsburgh Steelers edge rushers right now have 6 combined interceptions over the last 3 years. Doesn't really mean anything. Just an interesting little stat nugget. I thought I'd drop you on there. I got a comment, Humbervinder. Finally on Twitch. Yeah, we're on Twitch. I never really stream on here. I should if you're watching on Twitch. Help us out, tell us probably why we should be over here on Twitch a little bit more. We are interested in that whole world. So last but not least, before we jump into this Detroit Lions team, which is just going to be such a great time, we will be at the Fantasy Football Expo in Canton, Ohio, August 15th. Holding it down. We will have some merch there. We will be doing some giveaway stuff. We'll be doing a meet and greet, talking to you guys, spreading the word about IDP, pressing the flesh, spreading the good word. John the Baptist, what did he say? A voice in the wilderness, in the desert, letting y'all know IDP's coming to the mainstream. It's probably already here in a league near you. So play IDP this year. All right, let's get to Detroit. Oh, quickly, y'all, check out the new jersey. My wife and my son picked that up for me. Clay Matthews. We love defense. Not necessarily a big Packers fan, but you know what? I love a new jersey, and I will take it, and I appreciated that from them. So, all right, let's jump into this Lions team. Where do you want to go with this? this team. Last year, terrible record. Matt Patricia got kicked out of there finally. 22. The win-loss record in 2020 was 5-11. They added Jared Goff. Matthew Stafford is now with the Rams. They also added Michael Brockers, interior defensive lineman from the Rams. Head coach is now Dan Campbell. Anthony Lynn is going to be his offensive coordinator from the Chargers. So there is some precedent here for offensive ability. Anthony Lynn, I know he did have some good quarterbacks and good players, but there are still some good players on this team, I think. And then their defensive coordinator, Aaron Glenn, I don't really know a whole lot about him. So let's kind of get through this offense quickly. Jared Goff, my thoughts on Jared Goff at quarterback for this team are pretty simple. I think that he's a little bit undervalued right now. ADP quarterback 29, Fantasy Pros ranked quarterback 30. I know it's a bleak situation, but we've seen Jared Goff be a good passer. And we know what we know about this from a fantasy world or fantasy perspective is that this defense is not going to stop anybody probably. Goff is going to have to throw it. Sure, he'll probably throw a lot of interceptions and it'll probably be ugly, but you can be ugly and still be extremely fantasy relevant. Okay. Kirk Cousins. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I say that. Kirk Cousins is dope. People say that's ugly. That's not true. Jameis Winston is what I was going to say. Jameis Winston, Blake Bortles. You can throw interceptions and turnovers and still push the ball downfield. And I know that Jared Goff's depth of target has gone down every year, but we have seen Jared Goff throw deep. And he's not going to really have much of a choice. This team is pretty much on the wide receiver end of things. Just jumping a little ahead here is built just downfield. You have Brashad Perryman, Tyrell Williams. These are supposed to be your two outside receivers, apparently. Both speed guys, both outside receivers that are only really been known for their downfield ability. So, coming back up to Jared Goff, even if it is ugly, and I know he can't rush a lot, I think he's going to pretty comfortably throw over 4,000 yards this year. And 20 plus touchdowns is pretty much in the floor, in my opinion, just to even in garbage time. Blake Bortles 2015, look it up. These things can happen. So he's got some weapons here. Let's go ahead and talk about the wide receivers. Brashad Perryman, not necessarily a world beater, but he was a first round pick. We did have him see success with the guy I just mentioned, Jameis Winston, somebody desperately throwing downfield with no other options. Suddenly, Brashad Perryman was a wide receiver one the last third of the season. This was just in 2019. Won people championships because Mike Evans and Godwin were out. And guess what? Jameis put them in bad situations, and he had to try and dig them out. He threw the ball deep. Brashad Perryman was a wide receiver one. I think he might have been the wide receiver one down that stretch. So there's a world where he can be very fantasy relevant and massively outperform his ADP, which right now on Underdog is wide receiver 72. Fantasy Pros rank wide receiver 67. So there's a world where he outperforms that. I think there's actually, talking multiverse. I think a lot of the multiverses, he actually does do that. So Amon-Ra St. Brown, I get the appeal here as a big slot guy coming out of USC. I don't love that he was a 4th round draft pick. His ADP is only a handful of spots behind Brashad Perryman in Underdog, wide receiver 79. Fantasy Pros rank wide receiver 80. I understand the concept behind wanting to draft him. They have to throw to somebody, but if you're a 4th round rookie, they don't have to throw to you. Okay, I understand they have to throw to somebody. They don't have to throw to you. So I think that that's more of a dynasty lens that he's looked at optimistically, though. So then Tyrell Williams, I actually was a proud manager of Tyrell Williams. Was it 2017 when he finished as wide receiver, I think 16 or 17. Phillip Rivers just throwing it downfield to the Gazelle. I mean, he had a stride on him that season, y'all, and he could do some big games. Wide receiver 75 right now. Fantasy Pros consensus 89. Better in best ball, I guess, is the only thing I can really say. But I think the game scripts are setting up to where these guys are all essentially going to blow away their ADPs. Then Quintez Cephas, wide receiver 104. Fantasy Pros, wide receiver at 99. Again, these aren't guys I'm telling you you're going to start every week. These aren't guys I'm telling you to go out of your way to get, but there's more. I don't think these guys, if they're on let's put it this way, they're not going to be sitting on your waivers 3 weeks into the season, okay, if they don't get drafted. So that's kind of my thought process on those guys. Maybe not all of them. So, all right, we are going to, before we jump to our little break here, let's talk about TJ Hawkinson. Now, this is the guy that actually is being drafted and looked at, respected as a very high level asset offensively across the board. Pretty much everybody can agree on this one. That is TJ Hawkinson, tight end. This is going to be his third season, I believe. Underdog ADP is 64 overall, tight end 6. So you're probably asking yourself, what is there to love about Hawkinson, that makes him so special? It is kind of the by default, targets by default. Let's say these wide receivers don't really have the pedigree or the name, and I said that they should be targeted and they're going to be playing down. But if they're going to strictly go based on talent and ability, you're going to throw to TJ Hawkinson, one of the highest drafted tight ends of the past decade. Last year, 723 yards on 101 targets. That's some really good stuff. 6 targets a game last year, right around average, 8th most amongst tight ends. 66% catch percentage, not bad. It's up over 10% from his rookie season, and he also was like doubling his targets too. So he was commanding more targets as a sophomore, and the competition around him now with the departure of pretty much all the wide receivers. For whatever reason, I'm sorry, guys, in the losses, I did not say anything about Kenny Galladay or Marvin Jones leaving their primary wide receivers. But with those guys being gone this year, and whatever you will call it, already commanding those many targets in 2020, and now with lesser competition, it's looking like a perfect storm for TJ Hawkinson to have an extremely good season at tight end. And tight end 5 as consensus right now. I like it. I think that's fair. But I think, in Dynasty, he's just 23 years old and we're already looking at him as a top 5 tight end. Think just a couple of years ago, as far as Dynasty tight ends go, you're always thinking several years of development. So to get TJ Hawkinson at 23 years old, and he's already kind of put himself in that consensus conversation, I think that maybe we're underselling him or undervaluing him just a little bit. So, all right, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then I'll come back and talk to you about DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams, and then this defense, and then I'll get you out of here, IDP Army. What's good, IDP Army? It's Jordan Rains, and quickly I want to tell you guys today about the big project I've been working on, the Ultimate IDP Index. The Ultimate IDP Index is the #1 resource for IDP fantasy football players, rookies or veteran for 2021. Inside, you're going to find contract information, tiered IDP rankings, detailed player production profiles going back to 2017, suggested trade values, and a whole lot more, including unique write-ups, unique videos that will only be available within the Ultimate IDP Index. But to me, probably the most valuable thing is the fact that the trade value estimation tool is going to be updated weekly, so you'll always be aware of what a player is worth in your Dynasty League at any given moment. So what are you waiting for? Sign up for the IDP Army Patreon today. Patreon.com/the IDP Army. Join the Black Ops tier and join the IDP Army today. All right, we are back. I want to shout out the Patreons. I really appreciate you guys. This season, we're going to go win a lot of championships, y'all. Make sure you do me a favor. Go tell somebody in one of your leagues about the IDP Army. Tell them about the Patreon. Let's spread the word. Now you guys got a little leg up. You were a little early. Get that early access, but let people know. Let's make this game. Let's take the game to the next level. So, all right, let's talk about these running backs. DeAndre Swift is probably the guy most people are going to talk about. Rookie last year, did not get a lot of run for whatever reason. Matt Patricia and Bevel wanted to play Adrian Peterson. We know that was a shit show. So I think there's definitely meat on the bone for DeAndre Swift to take over as a primary back. Problem is Anthony Lynn likes using 2 backs, and he can make 2 backs very fantasy relevant. Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler are probably the best recent example of this. And so that's why I think that Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift are going to be very valuable this year, because they both can be. DeAndre Swift right now, ADP on Underdog, RB16. Fantasy Pros rank RB19. And then Jamal Williams, massively undervalued in my opinion right now, as Underdog ADP, RB46. Fantasy Pros, RB ranking 44. I think that, again, just looking at the way that we've seen these guys be used, I don't think that the reason they didn't give the work to Jamal Williams when he was in Green Bay was because he couldn't take it. It's because Aaron Jones was there, and they didn't have to put him in that situation. In my mind, when I look at DeAndre Swift and when I look at Jamal Williams, their skill sets are similar. They're both good pass catchers. They're both good running backs. Swift probably a little bit better, outside runner, I would say. Better cutting or whatever you want to call it. And Jamal Williams maybe a little bit better of the bigger back, maybe more of the between the tackles, carry the low guy. Anthony Lynn did early in the offseason say that he kind of viewed Williams as his A back. So that's like his big back. But again, I this is all coach speak in my opinion. And I think they're both going to get run, and I think they're both going to be good. The value discrepancy right now of, ranking them over 20 spots apart is, I think that's kind of where you're seeing a little bit of an issue. So I'm probably going to not say I'm not going to be draft. I don't have any DeAndre Swift. I might go try to get him because I think RB19 isn't really accounting for his true ceiling per se, but RB44, I don't even think RB44 would be Jamal Williams's floor in this system that they're going to be running, especially with such a weak pass catching core. And with a guy like Anthony Lynn that we've seen establish the run and uses running backs effectively. And at the end of the day, they're going to be a team that says they want to win games, and they're going to try to win games. And so they're going to put their best players out. I mean, that's what they're probably going to do. That's just kind of how I feel it. So let's transition over to this defense, and let's get you out of here, IDP Army. So we'll start with the line. The two primary players you're going to want to be concerned with are Trey Flowers and Romeo Okwara. Romeo Okwara had a breakout season last year, 10 sacks. That's a big number, 44 combined tackles, 3 forced fumbles, and he did this all in only 9 starts. Another interesting thing about Okwara is he was able to line up on both sides of the line and rush the passer effectively. 5 of his sacks came from the left, 5 of his sacks came from the right, which is very you don't see a lot of guys that can do that. Let's just put it that way. So he got a 3-year extension there. He's probably the better edge rusher now on this line of he and Trey Flowers. I know a lot of people like Trey Flowers, myself included. I think he's serviceable, but I think for an upside purposes, Romeo Okwara still has room to grow. Right now in the Ultimate IDP Index, I have Okwara in my tier 7, probably a little bit low. And for my season-long rankings, I'm not sure exactly where I have him, but I think he's in that the DL2 range. So I'm expecting him to continue to progress, see a lot of defensive snaps this season. Trey Flowers, I have him actually a tier ahead of him in the index. I think I'm probably going to have to adjust that to put Okwara ahead of him, just based on some of the research I've done since the last time I really deep dove into this Lions defense. The other primary player that I'm really interested in, there's 2 other guys I'm really interested in, but one of the other ones is Jamie Collins, linebacker for this team. Last year he only played 14 games, but he had 101 combined tackles, which is good. #good. Still came through with 3 sacks. He rushed the passer about half as much as he did the previous season with the New England Patriots. He rushed, according to PFR, blitzed 90 times. Last year, only blitzed 40 times, but still came up with 10 sacks. Still had a decent number of tackles for loss, came up with 6 of those this year, 10 the year before. So some people say he was a little bit less effective. I've kind of heard that said about how his season was, but I think that's I would argue that. I think that he's still an effective linebacker. I think that he's still getting paid like an effective linebacker. And I think if you really look at what he put on the field this last year, 6 pass deflections in 14 games. Again, he had, sacks. He did everything. It looks like he only had 1 sack this last year. I'm sorry. So he was down a little bit in his sacks. but still was blitzed quite a bit less. So the primary guy that I really like on this defense, though, and a guy that I have not stopped pounding the table for, even when others abandoned ship, when they said all hope was lost, Tracy Walker, he sucks. They said, Tracy Walker, just a box safety, replaceable level talent, they screamed from the hilltops. But I'm still in on Tracy Walker, all right? I'm not with all that. In 2019, he was busy boy, 103 tackles in 13 games, only started 12 of those games, 8 pass deflections, 6 tackles for loss. Total of 14 impact plays and 230 points IDP 1-2-3 scoring. He did all that across 843 snaps. That was 2019. You break that down to a point per snap basis, that's 0.27 points per snap. You go to 2018, the year everyone said Tracy Walker fell off, the year Tracy Walker just wasn't the same guy. He just couldn't get it done. It looked that way, to the an undiscerning eye, someone who doesn't really dig a little bit deeper. But when you look a little deeper, he only started 7 of the games in 2020. Okay, so he wasn't getting the trust from the coaches. He still combined for 87 total tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 4 pass deflections, and a sack, 10 total impact plays, not bad. But here's what's really, really, really interesting. If you look at the defensive snaps, he played 675 defensive snaps, scored 181 points. Now you divide 181 points over 675 snaps, and he literally scored the exact same number of points per snap in 2020 as he did in 2019, the year that he broke out, and a lot of people had him ranked as a top 5, top 10 safety. On a points per snap basis, he was the same guy. The problem, the issue, Matt Patricia wanted to pull him out, wanted to play his certain safeties in certain sets. Oh, I'm going to play 3 safeties. Oh, I'm going to play my specialized safety. You remember how that defense was last year? Shit. All right. When it was better was when Tracy Walker was on the field. Go back, I think it was week 2 or 3. Aaron Jones ripped them a new butthole. All right. Every time that they took Tracy Walker off the field was when Aaron Jones took off on a big run. Say what you want about a box safety. Say what you want about just a guy who just, can't cover or whatever. There's value to that when you're going up against a guy like Aaron Jones and he's ripping off 30, 40-yard runs because Matt Patricia's getting cute, with his slot corner safeties and his hybrid specialty players, okay? Just put a guy in there that can fucking stop the run, all right? Tracy Walker can do that. Don't sleep on him. I still got him high in my IDP rankings. A lot of people were off of him. Go watch the tape. Go listen to the pods, in December, January, February. Tracy Walker, he sucks. They're all back on him now, all right? But remember who was never off of him. So, IDP Army, that's it. I'm running a little long on this. I'm saying that. I'm like a minute longer than I usually am. Thanks to everyone who tuned in. Go leave a subscription or a lot. Oh, my gosh, I suck at this today. Go review the pod on iTunes podcast or Apple Podcasts. Leave us 5-star rating. That would be dope. If you're on YouTube, thumbs up. If you're on Twitch, do whatever Twitch stuff that is good for Twitch interactions and all that. That'd be awesome. Go check out the website. Check out the rankings. Bomber's got his final article for the platforms coming up soon. Play Underdog, y'all. Okay, we want you to be millionaires. Okay, we want everybody to be millionaires. There's a code down here or a link down here in the description. There's one on the podcasting platforms. Go play Underdog. It's the summer of best ball. Click on our thingy. We get a little tiny kickback. We're trying to build the IDP Army up. If you're going to be in Canton, Ohio in a couple of weeks, come see me, meet me IRL, get some merch, play some of our games, win some cool stuff. I know for sure we're going to have a Myles Garrett jersey we're going to be having like a contest for. So, all right, that's all for me, IDP Army. Until next time, I'll see you.
Let the rain hit the sand. Build a house on a rock, got a plan. Gotta get stocks, keep them bands. Hear the clock tick, blades on the fan. Used to be mundane on a Monday. Now you have fun day on a Sunday. Cause you switching it up and you living it up. You ain't getting enough. Now you're picking it up.